Só tá da error.
Of course.
Não tem todo um new link. Não, me mandou novo stream key. Será que vou ver esse novo URL?
Dun, dun, dun. We are back, familia.
Ok.
No, we are
Perguntou.
not. Okay, we're back now.
Perguntou.
Oh my lord.
Now
Okay,
we
y'all.
are.
Oh,
We're
yes,
back.
we're live now.
We're
Like,
here. Okay,
we're
awesome.
live on YouTube. We're going live on Facebook.
We outside. All right.
We
Thank
outside.
you,
Yeah,
everybody, for your
everybody glowing.
patience. But we're back here with our episode. We have a special guest. We're gonna hear about her journey and just ask her some questions. So, like I said, we're here with Lee. She is part of the Team K Verde wrestling team and also has participated with the USA wrestling team. Earlier, I did mention that she's now a three-time world team member, two-time senior national champion, veterans U.S. Army Reserve, U.S. Army World Class athlete, and this is all winner of World Bronze award, which is for the freestyle, sambo, and beach wrestling. But I don't want to talk too much about Lee. I want her to share about herself, about your journey. For folks that are getting to know you for the first time today, Lee, what would you say about yourself?
I am a dual citizen now. So I have I have dual citizen for the United States. I was born in America, but I have Cape Verdean heritage through my father's side, and just wanted to explore, potentially starting wrestling in Cape Verde, which is what led me on this ancestral journey to kind of really understand my heritage more and to implement, if I can, you know, the existence of Olympic style wrestling on the islands.
And growing up, one in a Cape Verdean household, how did wrestling come about? Like, how did you discover your passion for wrestling, and how did that help you connect back to your Cape Verdean roots?
Growing up in New Jersey, I grew up with my mother. My Cape Verdean family, including my father, grew up in Quincy, Mass, Brockton, Mass, and that general
Quincy in the
area.
house. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like
My God.
my father's side kind of occupies an entire street. So if you are near Marble Street, most of my family is around
Oh, there
Marble
we go.
Street near the Springfield Technical Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know a lot about that. I only heard a little bit about that heritage. And I think when you grow up not knowing completely your heritage or your identity, there is always that question. And I feel like there is a lot of young people that go soul searching and go looking for those answers to who they are and where they came from. And I feel like that is a really important piece of your identity. And so, growing up, not knowing a whole lot about even where Cabo Verde was on the map, but just kind of like when people would ask, like, "What are you? What are you?" Because that happens all the time. What are you? You look
All
interesting.
the time. And
Are
you're in
you
New Jersey, so that's
Dominican? Are you,
even.
we know you're something, but we just can't put our finger on it. And I'm like, well, let me figure this out a little bit more. So,
Mm,
I'd been wrestling I started wrestling in high school. I didn't grow up I grew up in a really tough situation. And, at one point I was emancipated as a minor at 16 years old.
okay.
And I went and I told myself, I looked in the mirror and I said, you have an opportunity, you have a choice right now. Excuse me, you can succumb to circumstances or you can find a way to win. You can find a way to get yourself into a better situation, into a better circumstance, find yourself something that you're passionate about. And so I involved myself in education, and I just went to school and I just pulled up my transcripts because I'm going to go to physical therapy school soon. But um, I found myself like just involving myself in everything in music. If somebody said like, "Do you want to run track?" Yes. Do you want to throw discus? Of course, I can throw. Like I dug into anything that I thought might help me get over opposition, over that adversity, over the circumstances that, that sometimes we don't always get dealt a fair deal.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
can
Mhm.
really just sit there and say like, oh, well, I didn't have this, or I didn't have this. And, I think there's one thing to say about privilege, but there's also one thing to say about really hard work and making good
Yeah.
decisions
Yeah.
and moving forward in the right direction and knowing that you're in the right place because this is where God wants you to be. And
Yeah.
so I put myself in wrestling because somebody challenged me, and I had so much like pain and like stuff built up from like everything. And I never shared this before, so I'm gonna like take a deep
Mm-hmm.
breath.
Take your
I'm gonna take a deep
time.
breath,
Take your time, and thank you for
because
sharing too.
yeah. And so, I somebody came and said, you have an attitude. You think you're tough. You're like fighting all the time. You like fighting everybody. Like the world is against you. And I'm like, that's how I feel like inside. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're like, you wouldn't last 2 weeks in the wrestling room.
Try to
You were
test
like
you.
challenged.
You're
You're like
like, what are
challenge
you talking
accepted.
about?
All right, got you. So, bet I showed up to wrestling literally that day. I was like, okay, I looked in, and it's funny because, like, sometimes when you're a kid, you talk big, but inside
Mm-hmm.
it's just pain. It's just pain. And so, like, you're really not as tough. You're really, like, actually, you're kind of fragile. You're, like, vulnerable. And you got this, like, facade. And so, I remember the moment I dropped the facade is when I looked at the wrestling room and the walls were sweating. The walls were sweating. People were drenched. I mean,
Mm.
like, it was just like, and I was like, wow, this looks crazy. And then for a
uh,
second, I was like, what did I get myself into? Like, what am I thinking getting into this room? And it was literally the best decision I made in my life. I walked in there and I got handled. Like
Yeah.
nobody shows up in the wrestling room and is like immediately a world champion. I got handled, but I had to get back up. Not only had to get back up once, I had to get back up 1,000 times,
Multiple times.
a
Mm-hmm.
thousand times to get up and finally. And that means that not only did I have to get, like that doesn't even mean that I'm going to win this match.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Just because I get up 1,000 times doesn't mean I'm going to win. It just means that I'm going to go out there and give it another chance. And I felt like at that time, this sport grabbed a hold of me in the same synonymous way that life grabbed a hold of me too. That I knew that I wasn't going to get an easy pass, but I was going to have to get back up 1,000 times if I was going to get my hand raised. And
Yeah.
so I forgot about all the things that were going wrong and started digging into wrestling as a mirror to how I wanted to live my life. And so I became passionate about this sport. You couldn't get me out of the wrestling room.
Yeah.
I didn't win any matches my first year, but you couldn't get me out. I was hooked.
And
Let
this
me
was
ask.
in high
Go
school,
ahead.
right? My bad, Alex. This was in high school that you said that somebody's
This was high school.
basically
1 year
came.
of wrestling in high school.
And
Uh,
this someone that you said that challenged you, is this someone like in school or a colleague? Just curious, like of that moment that
Yeah. It
kind
was
of
my
triggered
it
you
was
of like, I'm
yeah,
gonna go for it.
it was the high school wrestling coach. His name is Brian Boker, and
Mhm.
Brian at the time when I started wrestling, nobody thought girls should wrestle.
And I was gonna
They're like,
ask that
why are
too.
you doing this? Like, what, you need some attention? You need somebody to pay attention to you.
Mm.
You just want to roll around with boys. I'm like, this is a sport. I look at it as a sport. I look at it getting better technically. I look better at my moves, and if anybody's applying any weird things to wrestling, it's because of their own
It's
mind, not because
them,
of
yeah.
what it is. And Brian was an open-minded coach who knew that wrestling could help somebody like me. He knew he had a knack for finding people that had an edge to them, that maybe had something to an axe to grind, if that makes sense. He knew I needed wrestling, and that's why he dared me. And he knew if he asked me straight up, I wasn't going to do it because I was a little oppositional, defiant. Oh, you should do this. I'm like, okay, whatever. He knew if he
Mm,
told me in a way that it was a dare, that I would take the bait.
yeah.
and just actually talking about that is like the fact that he saw that in you, that he was daring you to do something, and you thought that, come on, I can do that, and then all of a sudden you get humbled
Mm-hmm.
to like a normal state that kind of makes you realize, oh, I'm not so good at this thing, like I thought I was, but there is an opportunity here for me to be great because I can channel the right energies to become great at this thing. So
Mm.
for him to make that read where you were like so young, it's pretty impressive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like is he someone that till this day you have like a connection with and you guys
Yeah.
talk and
Absolutely. I mean, Brian will always, Brian and his family, Elaine, his wife, traveled with us with Team USA, and she was our athletic trainer. So, and they were there when I won my world medal, and they were yelling. Brian ran down, and people were yelling from the balcony, and and so yes, he's absolutely him and his family, and I used to babysit their kids when I used to work for them at the beach in New Jersey at the
Mhm.
surf shop. And so they're always going to be a part of my life, like 100%.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be where I am today if he didn't challenge me and wasn't open minded at that time to offer this to a female athlete.
to a female athlete. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the other thing too is like can you can you talk a little bit about what it meant to be a female in that environment because it's extremely challenging for females to play any sport. Now think of a martial arts where you're probably not going to find a lot of women in there like back then. Now it's
Yeah.
different. Now you have, way more, representation in that sense. So can you kind of, elaborate a little more on what it meant for you to be in that situation and some of the challenges that you faced?
Hmm. Women's wrestling has faced all kinds of challenges. I mean, I don't even know where to start with that one, but I think the biggest challenge were that just the opinions of people that, thought that the wrestling was some sort of like joke, that, women weren't very technical and that it was kind of an attention seeking thing. And that there was even one point where I remember in Colorado, this tournament that we were in, they actually took away it's called parterre. Parterre is our bottom position where you get the opportunity to score more points. And they took away that position for women, saying that it looked inappropriate. And I was like,
What?
but does
What?
I mean, if you're thinking like that, and I go back to the thinking of some people that may be warped or not exactly clean, but does it look any less different than the men's position? uh, like they're the same. It's sports, and so get those things out of your mind and look at the evolution of a sport that is now the fastest growing sport in the world. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think it took a lot of brave women to just go out there despite criticism. We had uniform problems. Our first set of singlets were just
Mm.
high cut men's versions, which led to embarrassing mishaps. Some of which were published in large, documentaries about women's wrestling about these mishaps. And so, just it's mostly comes down to like people accepting that women's wrestling is here to stay and it's not going anywhere, that we are amazing athletes that put a lot of hard work into our skill and our craft. And if a sport like wrestling can build character in our male athletes, why can that not be offered to females?
Hmm.
What do you say to young girls that are interested in wrestling but are learning about these different challenges that you've shared right now of like some the reality? What do you tell these young women that want to participate? How can they participate? Like, what are some tips that you also offer? Like, where to start?
Sure. Now wrestling is completely blown up all over the world. We don't have the same challenges that we had before, and I think for girls that want to start wrestling, they can just either join in their high school. Most of the states around have sanctioned girls scholastic wrestling, so they can join their and have their own team. Not like when I started, I had to wrestle on the boys' team, and so that was also
I was
yeah.
gonna ask, is it a co-ed or do
Yeah.
folks compete against same sex?
Yeah, we compete against other women.
Okay.
There are co-ed. Many girls like to join, especially when they're younger. They can join the boys bracket. They can
Okay.
wrestle and challenge themselves against the boys. A lot of the tougher girls do that just so they can get more experience. But we do have our separate categories, separate division. We are now an Olympic sport. We have the same amount of weight classes as men. And this is all due to the early pioneers and the early leadership of women's wrestling that really just, they didn't just pave the way, they like steamrolled the way through
Hmm.
and made us and put a stamp on it. And just, we did things the right way, and we kept building technically. And now it's a very popular, sport to watch.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so cool. One thing I wanted to ask you about is like obviously, there's I'm sorry, hit the microphone. There's two. I would say there's two lives of you as a wrestler. First, there's Lee Team USA, and now there's Lee Team Cabo Verde.
Yes.
So talk about you going to Team USA, competing for Team USA, and what that meant to you, because obviously you grew up in the United States.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So yeah, and obviously you identify yourself as American as well. Um, how did that feel? And why did you feel the need later on in your life to look at your other identity and be like, you know what, I feel like I can make an impact
Hmm.
for Cape Verdean people. So talk about your career with Team USA, your wins and your losses, and then how that made you transition into becoming I think you're a president of the Cape Verdean Wrestling Federation.
Um, no, I'm not. No.
Oh, okay, all right,
But I can explain a little bit more
all
about
right,
that,
yeah,
because it's actually very complicated, that aspect of things.
yeah.
So how did I? Okay, so Team USA. Uh, I didn't even know it existed. When I talk about, like, how I grew up and how I got to where I am, it was a series of looking at the opportunities ahead of me and being and just kind of walking through that door. And I got the opportunity when I graduated from high school to compete in college. It was the first year that they were starting women's wrestling teams in college. And because I tried so hard and, tried to, put myself out there and take risk, I got recruited to go to Missouri Valley College, where I finished my degree. But I also enlisted in the United States Army and commissioned for. I was originally a combat medic, and then I commissioned for the medical service corps. So that just being the framework of things. But wrestling all the way through college, I didn't know that there was anything to do with wrestling after, I said, okay, I'm gonna get like a normal job. I'm gonna go live my life, have a family, whatever. But when I was in ROTC, the commander of our ROTC program said, the Army has a female wrestler. And I said, the Army has a female wrestler. And so he began to explain about the Army World Class Athlete Program and how you could wrestle for the United States of America and get paid active duty to do your sport. And I was
What?
like, that's amazing. Like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I'm not done wrestling. I feel like I just started. It's just starting to like feel like it clicked for me. At the end of college, I became like a two-time college All-American. We didn't really have a national championship, but what our version of the national championship at that time, I won that my final year. I got a couple bricks at my college, a little mural with my face and stuff. And so that I felt like, I'm not done. I think I can do something else with this. And began starting to look into the Army World Class Athlete Program. Found out that I needed to be a resident athlete at the Olympic Training Center. I didn't think that I had the qualifications to be at the Olympic Training Center. So this was like moments of self doubt. But I remember going up and talking, like I had to clear like Terry Steiner. Terry Steiner's the national team coach and he has been for Team USA. And so I go up and at University Nationals, and I go up to Terry Steiner, and I'm like going up there trying to get myself together. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tell him like I'm not very good right now, but I can be better. I'm very coachable. I'm smart. I'm a hard worker. I can do this. So I'm like pumping myself up, and I go over there and I'm like shaking, and I'm like telling, and he lets me finish everything, and then at the end of it, he tells me, "Oh, I'm Terry's twin brother. My brother is over on that side." And
That's so
I was like,
funny.
All right. So I get a second take. By the time I get to Terry, I'm good. So I give him my spiel or whatever, and he asked me like very specific. He's like, "What are you ranked right now in university national? In what are you ranked in college?" And I looked on the thing nationally. I was ranked like sixth or seventh, and he said, "Okay," and I was like, "He's like, you have to be top seven." And I
What?
was like, "Oh my!" And I'm like, and I'm thanking God, and I'm like, thank God. I like this is amazing. So I move into the Olympic Training Center. I'm now a resident athlete at the Olympic Training Center. I see the Olympic rings that I've been watching since I was a kid, but in gymnastics and other sports that that I really watched when I was a kid. And I'm like, this is phenomenal. Like I can't believe that I'm here. And I took that program so seriously because I was so far behind, in my opinion, about my experience in wrestling, and I had goals of wanting to participate in the world class athlete program and winning a world medal and potentially making an Olympic team. And I started my journey doing that. Um, Won a world medal and felt like I was timing out in Team USA, so I spent about 10 years on the team. You know, um, how did I get to Cabo Verde wrestling? I'm standing outside with a gentleman named August Wesley, and we were having a general conversation outside of the Olympic Training Center. And I said, I really would like to wrestle for my father's country, at some point in my career. And he's like, "Oh, what is that?" And I was like, "I'm Cape Verdean." And he's like, "I'm Cape Verdean too." And I'm like,
What?
"What?"
Yeah.
And so when I tell you, like, life has not been easy, but when God like gives you like a message, it's like boom, it's like right on you. And that
It
was the
just
connection.
clicks. Yep.
Boom. And I was like, and 10 years later, and then I reached out to Angelina Miranda, who I know is Cape Verdean wrestler. Then I'm reaching out to people that I know, like, and and really August was basically fundamental in kicking everything off in terms of representing Cape Verde on the world and potentially Olympic stage. But it was that moment where we kind of had a common idea, and we both found out like randomly that we were both of the same heritage, and that kind of was the catalyst to always come back to this idea to bring wrestling to Cape Verde.
And that was 10 years ago, you said?
Yeah, that was
Then
over
you
10,
guys
10, 11 years ago. We were sitting out, literally just standing randomly, general, like, just one of those conversations like, "Hey, how's it going?" And it
And
just sparked something.
that's
what does it
interesting.
look like to establish the team Cape Verde? Like, what was recruitment like? Paperwork, like operationally, what does that?
Bureaucracy, red tape.
Right.
Yeah, basically this is what had to happen, or this is what has happened and is almost finished happening. We had to establish associations. So the goal is always not to just have Cape Verdean Americans or people living in France or people living in Portugal or people living in California, whatever, in Rhode Island, whatever. The goal is always to develop and establish wrestling in Cape Verde, right? That's our main goal, right? But to do that, we had to create associations. We had to create at least three associations to get qualify to become to move forward as a federation, and then five associations to become a public utility. Right now, we have created, and I don't have it in front of me, and I actually forgot to do that, but we have six, I believe, five or six associations that we've
And they're
created.
local, they're like different
In the
areas
Santiago
within
U.S.
cities.
South, São Vicente, Santo Antão, we have Brava, Boa Vista. So we have wrestling associations in those
Okay.
locations in Cape Verde right now at this moment, and we are now in the process of the IDJ,
What is IDJ for those that don't know?
Institute of Juvenile Sports,
Okay.
Institute Juvenile de Sportes, something
So
like
is
that.
it is
Yeah.
that like for the youth
This
theme
is the
team?
Minister of Sport and the organization
Yeah, got it.
that facilitates the scholastic sports. So they have transportation to like let's say for example judo. They'll go and pick kids up, take them to judo practice, and then shuttle them back. So it's all a system that will provide wrestling in certain locations, and those locations can start to develop their region,
Their
they
own
have
region.
regional championships, then have a national championship, and then qualifications for world, African championships, Olympic games, and world championships, things like that.
Hmm.
So we're just in the very early stages of that right now. We have to be published on what is called a bulletin, and then from there, we can start accessing funding, from the Olympic Committee potentially, if that's the avenue that they would like to go. I don't have all the answers for that, but
Yeah.
we will qualify for additional funding through, through the IDJ on the developmental level, grassroots level, and through the Olympic level from the Olympic Committee in our national governing body.
Yeah. And just a follow up, so all of these sites or associations established in Cape Verde right now, do they all have like their own gym? Like, how does facility look like? And
Hmm.
as you answer that, I know you mentioned the youth and sports minister in
Hmm.
Cape Verde, or cabinet in Cape Verde
Hmm.
is involved. Like,
Hmm.
what other partners or other support that came about in order to make this happen?
Yeah, we're going to be relying a lot on United World Wrestling and their development program. We have really close contact with a development, who's specifically responsible for developing wrestling in Africa to
Okay.
activate sport. Because if you look, I mean, our cup overflows here in the United States, and that is one reason why, like, we have to extend an olive branch to help develop, the rest of the world in sports. And obviously, I have ties, so I want to be passionate about building this. And so is this individual. He's responsible for making sure that the African continent, gets better
Is
in the sport of
developing.
wrestling. And so each country starts to adopt. And so they'll be giving us resources,
Okay.
and training. For instance, there's an opportunity, and I don't know if it's too early for that, but there's an opportunity for a development for 30 people from Cape Verde who would like to be officials, who would like to work as coaches, of the different associations and stuff, to come and work with United World Wrestling, get that baseline knowledge on how
Dope.
to start your program and what to train your kids right now. And there will be development. We have a relationship with an institute in India, developmental athletes of U20, let's say 20 years and under, and 23 years and under can participate for 1 week at the Sports Institute. And so there are huge opportunities that will be offering through United World Wrestling, through the Olympic Solidarity Program, through the national governing body, and for the IDJ. And we qualify for all of that because of all of the teamwork and hard work of all the Cape Verdean people and Cape Verdean American people that got these associations finished, that put some money on it,
Yeah.
that communicated effectively, and we worked together as a team, and we got it done.
And when did this start? Because that's a lot of sites, a lot of people,
Yeah.
and thankfully a lot of partners and
Hmm.
folks that came together. So I know you had the conversation 10 years ago, right? That sort of
Hmm.
sparked that. But in terms of when was the first site established or
Uh,
association?
first, actually, the first association, was, they call him Johnson, but he owns the Santiago South Association. He was the first one. He started in 2020. I think he just, was just one person who, wrestled. He wrestled in Cuba, trained under, you know,
Wow.
uh, yeah, trained under, Milan Lopez. And, obviously he's one of the giants in the wrestling world, for those who are watching wrestle. So he just was passionate about the sport, but didn't really see a real opening, but just kind of, like, put the ember out there to light the fire, and started that association without any real support or
Yeah,
any real help.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's wonderful in terms of activating the sport in Cape Verde, but I also wanted to talk about access, right? Like, what does access look like? What does admission look like? When I think about the youth, when I think about why folks don't even play sports in Cape Verde, because sometimes you have to come from a place of privilege to access it. Even like playing
Mhm.
soccer,
Hmm.
not every kid has cleats for them
Yeah,
to
of
play it
course.
safely. So talk to us about what does that process look like? I want to be an athlete. I live in Sal. I want to
Uh-huh.
be a wrestler.
Sure.
And I reach out to you and like, how do I do it? What's the next step?
Yeah. well, hopefully by the time that individual wants to be a part of wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
we have an association on that island.
Okay.
So the larger islands will have two associations. So, for instance, Santiago will have Santiago North, Santiago South,
Right.
and and the other ones will have only one access location. But that doesn't stop other individuals from opening up private clubs. Uh,
Hmm.
Even though we're right here at the very baseline level, I think coming up in this next year, our goal will be to establish those training sites. And access looks like through the IDJ is just being at your bus stop and getting on the bus and taking yourself to training. Wrestling doesn't require a lot of money outside of the mat. So once we get support on the
Okay.
mats in the mat space, all we need is kids that want to participate. They don't need anything, and we'll work on those other uniforms, shoes, things like that. Those are the things that we'll be reaching out to the community to help outfit
Okay.
in the future. Because you will need wrestling shoes, but there's also other disciplines like beach wrestling that you just need shorts and a t-shirt.
I was gonna
Hmm.
say
Yeah,
because I saw that that was one of the
yeah,
awards that
absolutely.
you got, and Cape Verde would be wonderful because you have
Yeah,
plenty of beaches to
so
do
many
that.
beautiful beaches. You're
So
going to bring in a lot of international people. It's going to help build the economy. It's so much bigger than just one person's like outside idea. It's so much bigger than that. It's going to do so many good things for a lot of kids and in the
m- my last question for this round, at least, and I'll hand it to Alex. I was so there's no like admission like fee for me to join this particular association as a
community.
wrestler,
No,
like member
in Cape
dues,
Verde
none.
right now, I don't know if I don't believe that there are kids that are being charged. I think
Okay.
adults will be charged if you obviously if you want to practice and do like some adults like to do jujitsu and stuff like that. Adults will be required to pay membership as far as I know. But I'm not sure if they've worked out all those details. But as far as the kids go, that's a public utility. That's something that's there for them to be able to participate in.
Good, good. That I was wondering. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really good. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is, um, I mean, just kind of within the federation and associations. I mean, how do you guys like work together? You know what I mean? Like, are you guys meeting, once a month? You know what I mean? Like, who's the? Because I know the governing body is the federation, but I know there
Mhm.
is. You guys have your own thing here in the U.S. as well. How is that interchange and like that communication happening between you guys? How do you guys scout athletes? How do people get ranked to
Yeah.
kind of get to these tournaments? So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, right now we've just been kind of operating as individuals that want to wrestle for Cape Verde because there really wasn't the establishment of all of the things that we are coming up on.
Hmm.
So uh, it it was just about a couple of us having the heritage and wanting. And originally, I changed and I wanted to compete for Cape Verde as well. Like my passport and the process of digging into my ancestry and heritage and proving everything took over 2 years. So, so I had to produce documents. I had to find my great great grandmothers, like when they came over to the United States on the boat, and who his parents were, and all that stuff. I mean, I had to go. I had background checks and testimonials, and family members going to there and testifying for me, and all this stuff. And so it was incredibly hard and challenging for me to get that citizenship requirement. It's not like people think where, oh, you can just go pick up a passport and wrestle for a new country. No, you have to really go deep and prove your heritage in order to become a citizen. And that's what I had to do. And so I missed the cutoff to compete, for Cape Verde for this time. I think I'm too old for the second time, so I'm gonna do something good. Yeah, I know. I feel that too. There are people there, people saying that what's the difference? Just go out and compete. It's been a dream to compete for my dad, and I may do that if I feel like my body's healthy enough. But in the
Can you
meantime,
coach? Can you
I
coach,
do.
or is that what you're already doing?
Yeah, yeah. In the meantime, it's about identifying or finding people that of Cape Verdean heritage that want to
Right.
compete and helping them either get their citizenship if they don't have it already, or helping them purchase their cards and be able to start. But right now, everybody's fundraising for themselves. There's very little funding. Only
As
there's
a
only like a little tiny drop of funding that is being used for other things, in other
Th-
ways.
That
But
in itself must be a huge challenge
it is.
trying to establish a team, but then understanding that as individual athletes, folks are also trying to establish
Mhm.
themselves, and
Yes.
financially that sounds costly.
It was it was it's we raised a lot of money. Thankful to the Pepito Foundation in Rhode Island that
Okay.
gave us our first start. They gave us our first chunk of money that allowed us to go to Tunisia. In Tunisia, we went to the African Championships. Our first arrival there, we had another athlete that was competing, before, and he'd been kicking us off on the circuit.
Mm,
But Tunisia was where we really had a team going to the African Championships, and we got sponsored by Adidas, who sent us some shirts that we could wear to look, uniform as a team, and it's the one that you shared on the flyer.
yeah.
So that was the moment where we just arrived, and we took Montero. He took a gold medal at the
Mm-hmm.
U20 competition. So he's an African champion for you. So first time, and second, Ariana Olympia Xavier took silver at the U20 competition as well. So we took home two medals in Africa. Our first day on the job. So
That's
Wow.
crazy.
yeah,
That is crazy.
yeah.
And
And that
wasn't one that was like close to actually qualifying to the Olympics?
Yeah, actually, Angelina
Angelina.
Angelina,
came
yes.
back to wrestling after 10 years. And and she doesn't, she was always a strong athlete, but sometimes, I can identify, but she had some things that she felt like she didn't have enough people digging into her talent.
Mm,
People identifying her and saying like, man, you got a lot of talent, you got a lot of strengths. Like, let's work with that. And so, coming back and doing this again, I feel like she gets an opportunity to rewrite her story and close it the way she wants to close it.
yeah.
And, I think she's really grabbed it, and she's training hard. She's dialed in. She represents herself in a beautiful way, and I think she's going to do a lot of great things. As far as a representative for Cape Verde, she hadn't competed. I don't think she's ever competed overseas before, and so we take her over to the Olympic qualifier, and she's very nervous, obviously, and then finally, like right before the competition, she breaks the facade breaks, and it was just like all
Wow.
of the emotions came out, and all the heavy things just kind of came out, and then since then she has been a new woman, a new athlete, and has really went out there. She got her first win. She qualified for the finals at the Olympic trials. She was one match away from making
Mhm.
an Olympic team. She's gonna joke about it because she had just got she didn't have any makeup on. If you see Angelina's Instagram, all right, she makes it happen. And this picture was not what she expected. And so boom, it's like big big screen, like huge screen on her walkout. Her face is up there, her name is flashing in lights, and like we cried so many times during this thing because it's so profound to see that happen for her, to see her
Yeah.
get her first win, to see her like her father passed away, for her to see her represent her father. um
Hmm.
it's amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting Angelina actually, and shout out to her. She's listening and she's laughing
Yeah.
on the chat, on the comments on the IG live. Shout out to Angelina. And and that's something that me and Alex we were talking, even when we were talking about who to bring on the podcast, and while we're bringing athletes, there's so many stories like y'all that people don't know about. Again, goes back to the whole conversation around Cape Verdean sport and the support or lack of. So, what does that look like for you? I know you talked about the foundation that supported right in the beginning, but like, where is the support coming from right now? And if you could identify opportunities for us to support not only the athletes individually, but the team Cape Verde wrestling team. How
I think you're on mute,
we
me.
we can see you, but I don't know if she. No, I can't hear you. I
I
think
think
I think she
you're
was
on mute.
getting she's not on mute. I think she was getting a phone call and then that disrupted the
So do you want to get out and come back
yeah.
in? We'll just
When we
wait for you
come
here.
back.
Yeah.
Quick commercial break.
Commercial break.
Commercial break. But I d- I want to remind folks of the jersey. It is available. It is on our website. Alex and white is also available, and we have the
In the
red
red.
is
Red
out. If you
skintilogan la.
get jersey to Bezra.
Foi sobra jersey na canela. Wow.
Wow, check out. Vamos aproveitar. Dezembro você tá bem, os bata cumpre chuchu com chuchu se Christmas
Brandon Apple.
gift. Se você quer se na Halloween com aquela camisa ali também que tem programa.
Exatamente. Bem jogador.
Jogador
Chance
maluco
abo
foto.
gosto
Yeah,
antes. Chance no Queen C.
it's okay. I didn't even
Tem que
catch
ter
that
educa.
this time.
Boca get.
I didn't even catch it
Mas
until you did.
a voz som queria que você sai. Som ainda que sai.
No, next project is dropping in November, se Deus quiser.
Coisa boa.
Uh, yeah, I'm super excited. The song is called Mentira and it's featured Fred Ged Sambriu. I'm really excited about the song because I'm actually rapping. I mean, I rapped on Dangerous, but it was kind of more singing. But this one, I'm like, I'm
You
very
ready?
like no filter, and I'm excited. So let's see how
We're
it
waiting.
goes.
We're
I'll
waiting.
have more updates hopefully by the next episode about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think okay, we got
We
Lee
got
back.
Lee.
Let's check your sound now if you wanna. No, it's not working. Okay, try now. Yeah, the sound is not working, Dennis. I know.
Lee,
I think
are you sure you're not on mute?
it would say like right now
It's
she's
it
on
does
mute,
say it
and then
does
she
say
removes
there.
it, but she doesn't. It doesn't sound. Eu gotta say so. Gotta say.
That's
That's
weird.
so weird. Check your
Maybe
settings of what your mic is set
yeah.
up with. Should be your phone. Okay, she's gone. She'll be back.
She's gonna she'll be back. That's fine. Ma som próxima by next month. Kufla.
Yes, I have the date, but I'm not ready to share. But I'm super excited, and then I'm more excited about 2025. I have a lot. It just feels different from when I first started doing music. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a whole year plan. Um, and
Que
life
tempo que
is
você, que tempo que você lança com aquele EP?
EP. I already got it. I'm gonna
Ooh.
drop an EP in 2025. You've heard it
Okay.
here first. Quincy's dropping an EP. All right. Okay, now you're on your laptop. Okay, that's
Yes, we
perfect.
can.
It's all
That's
good.
all
Don't
good.
worry. It happens. So we were talking about, you know, supporting y'all as individuals and the team. If you could identify, ways of how we can do that financially or anything else, that would be good.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're starting from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have a resource for sports that you think you could help with or contribute with, I mean, obviously, we're gathering things and we're starting from scratch, and even to the point where we've started collecting. Like, I have a organization, Talents Wrestling um, United, that
Okay.
donates where people donate from the United States, like like old wrestling shoes that they grew out of, things like that. We're collecting all of those things, sending them to different locations of need in Africa, Cabo Verde being one of them, because wrestling shoes. My daughter grew out of her wrestling shoes. She only wore them 1 year. So
Wow.
we
I
can
was
pick
gonna
those
say
up.
they probably like get beat up really early.
No, they. I mean,
Oh,
I have like 8 pairs of shoes. But once my daughter grows out of those, we'll throw them in the bin and we'll send them over to Cape Verde, or whatever.
so
So
this is your nonprofit. You
yeah,
collect.
it's
Okay.
and so I have bags and bags of sports clothes and shoes and stuff in the basement of my house right here. and we'll be sending them to different clubs and associations in areas of need,
Okay. And what
especially
is
the
one
shoes.
thing that you see a need of like the most,
Running
especially
shoes,
running shoes?
workout clothes, especially sports bras, things
Mm.
like that for the girls.
Gotta
If
see
you
if
have wrestling shoes, and
Island has any old merch
yeah, I
that
mean
we can
anything.
send to TV.
Absolutely. I like if you have something that you would like to contribute, and really any at this point, everything's going to help, and everything is going to.
You know, a CV loves some clothing drive.
Yes.
You know,
No,
the
for
other day
sure.
my girl told me her mom has her bidons ready. If I have stuff that I can bring,
Yeah.
it's like I'm probably the only Cape Verdean that finds no joy in doing a bidon. If my mom is listening to this, sorry mom. I know it's been 10 years and I still haven't packed a bidon for you. But I think that is one, if you think about the community aspect of how Cape Verdeans give back,
Mhm.
clothing, and I know some of it is very specific to the sport,
Yes.
but I
Hmm.
think that is one thing that even if it's an event wise or you have like different drop off locations. I mean, you have
Mhm.
your nonprofit, so you clearly have an operation already,
Yeah.
but it
Oh, I
would be
have it
nice to
already. I'm
see.
starting it.
Yeah, like if you have the Cape Verdean Association of Boston, Cape Verdean
Mhm.
Association of Brockton being like drop off
Yes.
locations. I did a prom
That's a
dress
great
drive.
idea. That's a
I
great
did a
idea.
prom dress drive and I was so overwhelmed with those dresses. I was like, I don't think I got enough girls for all
That's
these dresses.
amazing. That's
And it
amazing.
was just by identifying different locations. And when you think about where the Cape Verdean community is at,
Yeah.
there must be a association or a center that's like
Hmm.
a good location for those drop offs. But that's
Yeah.
amazing. I did not know about
Definitely.
your organization, so we'll make
Yeah.
sure to get
Yeah. If you have the
that
wrestling,
information so we can share.
I
One
was gonna
thing
say
that
for
I,
wrestling,
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
like wrestling shoes, running shoes, shorts for beach wrestling, sports bras for beach wrestling, and wrestling singlets. And we've provided some of those things already to the South Association, but obviously we're going to be blowing up pretty big here.
I think now that you just brought that up, Lee, I think there is a need for like, and I don't know where islands could probably come into this, is like a place where all of the communication for people that can help, for people that want to help, to
Hmm.
go and find, what are the means for you to help. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some stuff out there, but I feel like a lot of the, I feel like the masses, especially here in the U.S., the Cape Verdean masses, they tend to not know how they can help or where they can help. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And I think us as like a brand that's like, connecting the U.S., Cape Verde, and Europe, we could probably figure out a way to find all of these opportunities for people to help, like wrestling or you know, you know, turkey drives and stuff like that, and create like an area, be it a website or whatever, where people can just go in and find this information and help. You know what I mean? So just some ideas out there. I know we kind of talked very early before the podcast that we're gonna do some together. So maybe we can,
Yeah,
continue
let's
that
just brainstorm.
brainstorming.
And we will. I mean, we are obviously. It's supposed to be like a symbiotic, a mutually beneficial relationship, right? You're a business owner, a businessman. You're doing a lot of great things. I want to hear your music, by the way, Chantel. I was actually passionate about music. I thought I would go to school for music before wrestling.
I was going to ask you,
Yeah,
just because you just mentioned it,
yeah,
what outside of wrestling,
yeah.
what else? Who is Lee aside from wrestling? Just interested in seeing how you manage like the different responsibilities
Yeah,
that you have, especially trying to start this from scratch, like you said.
yeah. Um, Lee originally is a band geek.
Mm-hmm.
I was in every band. I was in every single band. I play the flute. I play the tuba. So I love that rich bass. And I conducted the bands when I was in school. So I was the drum major of the marching band. I was in wind ensemble, all South Jersey,
Okay. Oh my
wind
God.
ensemble, jazz band, Dixieland band, any band.
Were those in different like seasons during the school year that you were
I
able to
all
do
4 years
wrestling and
I
music
rest I all 4 years I was competed in marching band competitions,
and wrestling?
played in the all South Jersey wind ensemble, um, and just was really passionate about music, instrumental music, and
What happened?
wrestling happened,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and I didn't see and music is coming back to me now. I
Mm.
picked up my flute for the first time in a long time, and I miss playing, and I miss digging into that. I think it's good for my mental health to go back to something I love,
Hey.
with music and all that. Wrestling just kind of consumed, and I just kept seeing opportunities that would help me move forward with
Hmm.
wrestling. So I put music on the back burner, but it's starting to come back, and yeah, and it
I
feels
relate. I relate to that a lot. I relate to that a lot. Music didn't come back to me until COVID happened, and then it was like, I don't want this just to be a hobby or something from the past.
good.
And we talk a lot about mental health here on our podcast. So just transitioning to that, like how, and you said music has been like the space or the instrument that you're using when it comes to your mental health. How about wrestling? Like, what is the conversation in the wrestling world around athletes and taking care of their mental health, especially a sport that is super physical?
Hmm.
What are there conversations, or there needs to be more conversations about mental health amongst athletes?
Um, I think that yeah, I think it's becoming less of a stigma. I mean, even not just in wrestling, but in the military.
Okay.
Talking
Mhm.
about mental health in the military and soldiers and taking care of that. I think the world has adopted this overall like wellness perspective now. I don't think it's taboo anymore to talk about some of the mental health crises that we may face,
Mm,
because some of us may be getting hit hard in our personal lives, and nobody knows, and maybe that person feels like
talk
they
about
can't
it.
say it or they can't relate to it, so they just eat that
Mm.
all day, and it can have a huge effect. And I think just being able to have that conversation now, to know that there are resources. I know for wrestling, I had sports psychology the entire time I was there. that that didn't help me as much as a program called the Wrestling Mindset.
Mm,
The Wrestling Mindset is a program that helps focus on the things that matter and minimize the things that don't. And I think that was also because a lot of mental health is perspective. Um,
mm-hmm,
at one point, you lose
mm-hmm.
energy, you feel like the world is over, it, the world is ending, and then you really look at it from a different perspective, and everybody's like, it's just a match, doesn't feel
Seriously.
like that to the person who's experiencing it. And so that I think the conversation is open now, and I think finding outlets outside of the thing that you dare to be great at is important in having a balance.
Yeah. As
And go ahead,
Yeah, I'm
Alex.
gonna just one thing right here, just within the mental health topic. As an athlete, and obviously you talked about the matches and the competition. Like how is your routine to kind of help you deal with the pressure of the matches, of the anxiety before and all that stuff? Like how did you cope with that? How did you manage that, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, I mean, so if you remember how everything started, I was afraid to like not be successful at this,
Mhm.
because this is like, me jumping out there and doing a sport like wrestling. I took those losses hard. I mean, when I say hard, I mean like unhealthily hard. Like if I lost and didn't meet my goal of becoming a world class athlete, or if I lost in the world team spot, or I went one and out at a world championships, it would take me in the past like weeks to recover. I like when I say tears flowed, like they couldn't. I couldn't stop crying. Like I couldn't stop crying. It was just like intense. And I remember thinking like, this cannot possibly be healthy. Like I'm putting way too much weight on this match, way too much pressure on myself. And I think the pressure came from like, you know, for me, I felt like if I didn't get this, if I didn't get this shiny thing, that it meant that like I was a failure, and that I wasn't going to be successful, and that I wasn't going to have anybody that's providing me a safety net to get, to become a successful person, or whatever. And so there came the need to really dig into the psychology part of things, and to maybe see if there were maybe some other mental health issues that might be going on, depression and anxiety and things like that that were overwhelming my experience in wrestling. And that's when I started, working with the sports psychologist, potentially identifying. And thankfully, there weren't any mental health issues that needed to be medicated, but more so like things that I needed to cope with, and things I needed to let go of, and things I needed to work through,
Yeah.
to kind of, when you go through trauma, right, it sticks to your soul, like it sticks to you, and you have to
Hmm.
find a way to like release that, and so that you can be, I feel like, I don't know how spiritual, but that your spirit can kind of be free and you can
Mm.
do the
And
things.
I'm assuming this is the approach that y'all are taking with the associations in Cape Verde when
Yeah,
it comes to conversations around, because it's such a huge taboo,
yeah,
not only amongst the Cape Verdean American community here or the Black community here, but back in Cape Verde is definitely a huge taboo. So how are y'all navigating that?
yeah. I think when we start the process of like, we all have to get together. Everybody that's involved will need to get together and have those conversations about what resources are we going to be providing. Do we have a sports psychologist that might want to volunteer their time to work with the Cape Verdean Olympic and national team? That would be helpful if you have those skills. They don't always have to come in the form of material things. If you are blessed and educated in a certain area that you feel like you want to work with some of these young athletes and help them navigate some of these challenging waters of becoming an elite athlete, please step up. We would love to have you, and welcome you to helping develop our team. I'd like to be able to offer a program. I work for the Wrestling Mindset, and if Wrestling Mindset can translate that into Portuguese, and we can train somebody to, be able to administer that to the athletes, and they have that relationship. I would love to see that happen. So if Wrestling Mindset ever gets to see this podcast, I'm going to send it to them. They can branch out globally and offer their services to other countries. That may
But
be a possibility.
But you know what? You just touched on something right here that's very important. I know that there's people that are watching us or that follow us that do psychology here in the US that know how to speak Portuguese, that know how to speak Creole. So you can do a massive service
Welcome.
by getting in contact with Lee and seeing how you can help out their group, and just bring your skills, and I feel like that's a big problem of our communities sometimes. We don't have a vehicle that's channeling all of the skill set and the resources that we have within our community
Mhm.
for our community, and we have all of these people like spending it on other communities instead of spending it on ours. So whatever we can do, I'm sure we have more conversation about this, but finding people with the skill sets that you guys are lacking within our community is going to be a good thing to help you guys move forward in those areas.
And Andy, what is the next step for you as an athlete, but also for Team Cape Verde? Like, what can we look forward to?
Mhm. Um, right now we have Anthony Wesley. He'll be competing at the non-Olympic weight World Championship at the end of October. So if you follow CPVWRE on Instagram, we should be posting about that for those that want to watch an athlete in action currently. Um, I think the future coming up in January will be our efforts to establish a regional and national championship in Cape Verde, so that and hopefully we can get the community inspired and they get to watch our first competition there, and from there establishing the national team ladder, and assigning different, wherever, if you're number one, you're going to go to different things than if you're still developing. You'll be going to other developmental opportunities.
And how can people watch the competition happening in October?
United World Wrestling website has a live stream.
Okay, has a live stream.
People can tune into
And
the live stream.
what does this mean for him if he wins? Like, is
Well,
it qualifying to something else? Like, just curious. Like,
no,
what,
this is, I think, right now, and I'll be completely honest. I mean, even though we do have a couple of medals, this past year we took another. Mateo took gold again in
Mm-hmm.
Africa at the U20, and then he took bronze at the senior level. So he's getting better, right?
Okay.
So he took bronze. So he's a senior African bronze medalist, and Joao
Wow.
Vicente, he took bronze as well. So it will be getting some of our top guys and girls to those competitions that will help prepare them to perform better at the world and Olympic level. Um, our goal is to put somebody on the Olympic team, but of
Okay.
course, obviously, to take these athletes that already have experience and bring them back to Cape Verde to help them to the like for instance like the guys that are training in Rhode Island. We have about a handful of people training in Rhode Island. Our goal is to bring those guys back to Cape Verde to help coach and train and
Like an
support,
exchange
run,
program, sort
yeah,
of.
run camps and to work with the
Mm,
kids and to help facilitate the tournaments and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the trade-off. It's not like a free ride. Like if you're here in the United States and you're Cape Verdean, you're training and we're supporting you financially, your responsibility as an athlete is to come back and help your community,
and give back.
come
Yeah.
back and give back. And so that's really our goal.
No, I like that. I like that philosophy, and it makes total sense. Alex, I don't know if you had any final questions for Lee, or Lee, if you had any question for us or wanted to share anything that you hadn't had an opportunity to.
Yeah, we talked about some people having some talent in the community that may
Mm-hmm.
be able to help out. Keep in mind, like we're business minded too, and we're Angelina has a degree in marketing. I have a master's in business, and we like to amplify those people that help too. Hopefully, that leads to more clients, leads to more, opportunities and financial kickback. Of course, that's not why we volunteer, but it's a
Yeah.
helpful thing to know that that's going to open up a larger platform for that individual as well. But if anybody does want to contribute financially, we do have a nonprofit extension of the Providence County Wrestling Club. So, at any time, it's a tax deductible donation to support and literally 100%, literally actually 150% because
All
we
of it.
contribute
Mhm.
some of our own our own money to make something happen. Like we got Mateo 90% of the way, and
Are
we
there any events
the
or
other
fund?
20.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're
Are
good.
there any fundraisers or events coming up that's we can point folks to, other than, of course, the website? I know they'll always be there ready to accept
Yeah.
donation.
Right now, we're not running any fundraising campaigns. I think we didn't want to like keep poking, at like drawing money from people.
Hmm.
Let's let the dust settle and see how the funding and the bulletin and the division of all the budget goes to find out what our actual
Right.
need will be. So we don't want to ask money just to ask for it. We'll find out what we have for
That's
budget
fair.
and then what our need is, and then we'll put a goal out there to try to satisfy
Yeah.
that.
Well, if y'all got
Okay.
any merch,
Oh,
we always love merch. So if that becomes the thing, let us know. If it, of course, any opportunities that come up, let
yeah,
us know here at Ireland, and we'll make sure to share that with our network.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I thought I had something else. Oh, we do. If you want to start wrestling, okay, I'm going to challenge some
Okay.
people like I was challenged, right? So if anybody out there is tough enough to start wrestling, I challenge you to start. If you live in the Providence County or the Providence area, or if you're in Rhode Island, or even nearby in a city or state in Mass or
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut, you can come and train for free at the Providence County Wrestling Club. We have two locations in Woonsocket and one in Providence, or sorry, Pawtucket. But the practices run 2 times a week. We have a Cape Verdean coach. His name's Coach Goody. He was a Olympian in Greco-Roman wrestling. Maybe you guys
Mm.
might not know about him because we're just bringing. But he's coming and coaching right now 2 times a week, and that's an opportunity for you to come and get used to freestyle. You don't have to have wrestling experience, but if you do have some other combat experience, that's helpful. If you have judo, if you have jujitsu, all those things are going to help your wrestling. So we welcome you, we challenge you, and I dare you to show up in the wrestling room.
You just gotta have an open mind about everything, and
You
you'll
got to
be
be tough.
And it doesn't
you
matter
got
how
you gotta
old.
be tough.
It doesn't matter how I won my world medal at 35 years old, and the whole world told me I was too old.
I was about to say, I just
Ooh.
turned 30. I don't think I can make it.
35. That's what I'm
35,
saying.
the
That's
whole
what I'm
world
saying.
told me I was too
I-
old.
I have one last question for you, Lee. Um, you know, looking back at your younger self, you know what I mean? That obviously prior to coming into the world of wrestling and turning your life around and doing all that stuff, what and I you probably already touched on this, but what advice would you give your younger self or like any upcoming athletes that wanted to join to wrestle? Like, what would you tell them?
I what would I tell them, my younger self, or what would I tell younger athletes? I always just give it a try. I mean, you never know. A lot. It's not like it's a tough sport, but you can still maintain femininity. Just being a strong girl, being a strong athlete. But what I would have told my younger self is that there are more people for you than there are against you. There are more people that want to see you win, that want to see you fall and crumble, and try to dial into those people, because when you're not in a good space, you tend to think about only the negative things. That those things seem
Yeah.
to reign so big in your mind. Like, one person says they don't like your outfit, or they think you're too old, and that is the biggest voice that you hear. But try to tune into those voices of support. There are so many more people that are for you than against you. So many more people that want to see you be successful. Um, and if you are a person of faith like I am, God loves you, always loves you, and there's really nothing you can do to make that stop.
Count your blessings.
Yes, absolutely.
So
That's what's up.
denso.
That was on
So
point.
denso. Thank you so much, Lee, for coming today and
Thank
dealing
you,
with
Lee.
our technical issues, but sharing,
We made it
sharing
work.
your,
Yes,
We
you made
made
it
it
work.
sh-
work.
sharing your story, being vulnerable in this space. Really, I'm sure you've inspired folks, even if it's not to go to go to a wrestling training, but just like you said, really stepping out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself. I think that is the main message that I at least got today. And we're here rooting for you, rooting for Team Cabo Verde. However, we can support, continue to let us know. And all this success for you and the team as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you come out with the David DePina shirt again, I really need
Ah,
that.
I was
we've
gonna
been
I
getting
say
today I was
we've
gonna
been
buy it
getting
today. It's still sold out.
we've been getting
pre-orders. I
requests.
know that was pre-orders, but listen, the more everybody asks, Island
Come on.
sometimes tends to listen, and they'll bring some merches back. So let the masses know to keep asking for it, because that
Yeah.
was a really nice shirt for
It
sure.
was. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll keep that shirt forever. Forever.
Cool.
Alrighty,
Thank you, Lee.
Okay. Bye.
Appreciate
bye.
it.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Ciao.
Ciao.
All right. That was
Okay,
awesome.
okay.
So
That was
much that we
great.
learned. I really hope everybody took some notes na maneira que não pôde apoiar ali e time Cabo Verde de wrestling. No pensar todos grande momentum de desporto na Cabo Verde, diferentes tipos de desporto, and hopefully não continua com essa energia, não só quando tem torneios ou campeonato ou um final de cano ou
Tem que ser
whatever, but
sempre.
tem que ser
Tem que
sempre.
ser.
E que a sua financeiro, não. A minha menciona nome de muito alguém fazendo, que quando chegou que as pessoas eram falando,
Yeah,
alguém tem
imagina.
que fazer, tem que fazer para ser melhor. Mas,
Exatamente.
Alex, esse jersey, mas é que está bem, so
E
far.
Jersey está lá, só na website, e eu sabe, eu não falo dele muitas vezes hoje, para mim,
Deus.
não tive muito problema. Mas, eu só queria falar obrigado, pessoal, para nós ficar ali conosco, não sabe, mas hoje foi um dia chato, com tudo que essa interrupção de gravação, de que lá, mas
Mas um domingo
esse
com nós.
é
Se que
mais um
alguém que
domingo,
doente, é eco, seca eco.
claro, é aquela.
Sempre uma coisa. Mas já sabe que ele é mais um episódio de Island Talk. não também tem mais um próximo episódio, próximo mês. Se algum pessoa, algum convidado que você gostava para nos trazer, você já não sabe, ou algum tema que você gostava para nos abordar, já não se está prepara para 2026, só oportunidade de aparecer de certeza. A ver, 2025.
2025.
Eu, I
Chantando
mean,
para
sendo
2026.
I mean, sendo 2025 already. But yeah, se algum convidado, algum tema que o Crepa não aborda e deixar no saber como já no está plano calendário de 2025. Ok?
Ok, família.
Alright, família, eu fico direto. Tchau, tchau.
Vamos aí. Peace.